Several minutes later, everyone entered the secret realm. Its interior was a green mountain full of trees and grass. In the middle, there was a mysterious village surrounded by snowy mountains. Everyone approached the summit, and Chu Bul, who was at the back of the group, thought that this village was truly beautiful. He also asked why they couldn't see any monsters. Jang simply stood silently observing the beautiful village. Duanfei, who had his hand resting on his waist, began to look towards the village and explained to the others that it was likely that the monsters were hiding in the villagers' houses. He decided to search each one individually. Some time later, everyone descended from the mountain and arrived at the village. While they were walking, Duanfei asked the others not to worry and assigned Chu Bul the task of attracting the enemy's attention and facing them, while he himself would take care of dealing damage. Little Q would be in charge of healing, and Jang Chen and Mu Hankui would follow behind them. He asked the two not to lag behind. Upon hearing this, everyone responded. Somewhere in the village, there was a rock on which was written the Shining World. Emitting a strong and evil aura, Duanfei, Zhao Qi, and Jang approached the stone. Duanfei raised his hand to the sky, signaling them to stop. He realized that this stone was suspicious, so he asked them to be careful. Zhao Qi, who was standing beside him and holding the magical staff with both hands, explained that she disliked the atmosphere of this village a lot. She concluded that it had a dark nature. Jang simply remained still and didn't say a single word. Zhao Qi decided to first apply a purification buff to the village. She closed her eyes, extended her hand towards the sky, and her hand began releasing blue magic. The buff she had applied started spreading throughout the entire village. Jang brought his hand closer to his face, started looking at the magical dust, and with a surprised look thought that this buff was incredibly powerful since it not only cleared people's minds but also significantly increased their attributes and energy. At that moment, the wind started to blow and a cloud of smoke began to form. The sky changed color and turned red. The lights of the town turned on and an evil energy began to gather in the sky. They approached and couldn't help but be shocked and alert at the same time. This evil energy came from the stone. Duanfei quickly realized this and thought it was not good. He turned his head back and with a serious look, he ordered the others to run. Just before he could finish the sentence, the stone started absorbing him. Just before disappearing, he asked the others to stay away from the stone, and also gave them the order to call for reinforcements immediately since this was a mutation. A brilliant light descended to the ground just above the town, creating a magical barrier around it to prevent them from escaping. Several system windows appeared, warning everyone that this secret realm of level 30, called the Beautiful Town, had undergone a mutation and was now called the Village of the Dead. This secret realm was nightmare level, and the conditions to complete it were either to eliminate all the undead in the Village of Light or kill the final boss. The system left them a note: the light fades away, darkness flourishes, and that's when the door to the Kingdom of Death will finally open. The smoke dispersed everyone. Jang was teleported inside a house. As he read the system information, he realized that the secret realm had just mutated directly from normal level to nightmare level, and the others had also been scattered by the mutation. He couldn't help but be shocked while a drop of sweat was falling from his cheek. He remembered that this secret realm was level 30 and had nightmare difficulty. With his current level, fighting alone would be too dangerous. He recalled what Duanfeng had told him: if one accidentally got separated and found themselves in danger, they should immediately return to the teleportation point. Jang decided to listen to Duanfeng and decided to return first using the teleportation stone. Without hesitating for a second, he approached the wooden wall of the house and gave it a strong kick, breaking the wooden planks. But instead of finding the way out, he found himself in a room where there were lamps hanging from the ceiling, coffins on the floor, and on the wall there was a picture of an old man. Jang entered the room and after looking carefully, he realized that there was no way out, only coffins. Upon seeing this, he couldn't help but feel somewhat confused. The old man in the photo began to look at Jang and started to smile. He started to wonder if this was an illusion. He didn't know why the old man in the photo was smiling at him. At that moment, the lid of a coffin began to open, and someone with sharp claws started to emerge. Upon hearing the sound of the coffin lid, Jang turned his body towards the noise and with a confused look, began to wonder what was happening. Several necromancers opened the coffins and emerged. They started staring at Jang. According to the system, they were level 30 and had skills such as charge, decapitate, corrosion, among many others. Their main characteristic was that they were immune to normal physical attacks. The necromancers began to approach Jang quickly and prepared to attack. Upon seeing this, he assumed an offensive stance, raised his hand, and his hand started releasing the poisonous mist of Little Nine. While he watched as the necromancers were getting closer little by little, with a serious look on his face, he thought that if normal physical attacks had no effect on them, it was better to use poison. Just before the necromancers could make a move, Jang moved at an incredible speed, releasing the poisonous mist of Little Nine in the process. Within seconds, it began to spread throughout the room. After doing this, he left the house, took a leap, and landed on the roof of another house. In a matter of minutes, the necromancers came out of the house unharmed as if nothing had happened. He stood up, started staring at them intently, and thought that indeed poison was also considered a physical attack, which didn't have much effect on necromancers. To deal with them, he needed to rely on the help of a mage. He had to find a way to meet Xiaoqi as soon as possible. While he was lost in his thoughts, Little Nine manifested herself. She clenched her fists and brought them close to her chest. She began to look at the necromancers with a hungry gaze, opened her mouth, and as drool was dripping from it, she asked him if she could devour them. Upon seeing that she had appeared and wanted to eat the necromancers, he couldn't help but be somewhat surprised. With a confused look, he asked her if she would be able to devour the necromancers. He also added that devouring was also considered a physical attack. The necromancers began to approach the house, while Little Nine's body was surrounded by a powerful aura. She started looking at them and explained to Jang that she was going to be able to eat them. For her, they were delicious. Jiang started looking at the necromancers and gave her permission to go ahead and try eating them. But he also asked her not to push herself too hard. If she found herself in trouble, he would help her escape. Upon hearing this, she gathered momentum and with a murderous look, began to advance towards the necromancers, thinking that they were simply food. Jiang, who was standing on the roof, started to watch her and couldn't help but think that she was impressive. Just before the necromancers could make a move, Little Nine began to move at an incredible speed, piercing through their bodies, cutting them into pieces and devouring them in the process. She sat on the ground, pulled her knees together, placed her hands under her cheeks, closed her eyes, and with a smile started to enjoy the meal and feel as if she were in heaven. To her, they were very delicious. Upon seeing this, Jang couldn't help but be amazed. He began to look at her with a surprised expression and remembered that she came from the abyss, so essentially she was like an undead, both belonging to darkness. Now that he had the divine evolution, she could grow and become the mistress of the abyss, whose essence surpassed these necromancers completely. Upon remembering this, Jiang extended his hands towards the necromancers, and at that moment, his body began to emit Little Nine's poisonous mist. He started looking at her and smiled because she was capable of devouring the necromancers. He decided it was time for the other insects to also come out and enjoy a good meal. Jang's body began to emit a powerful energy, releasing the swarm of insects. He gave them all the order to separate, and also asked them to be careful not to be discovered by his companions. In the blink of an eye, thousands of insects emerged from his body and started attacking the necromancers. The insects began to attack and devour the necromancers. A system window appeared to inform him that his spiritual pets had killed 3 low-level necromancers, granting him 15 out of 21 points. Little Nine also started devouring them, obtaining 602 points. As the insects were slowly devouring the necromancers, another system window appeared and congratulated Jang for leveling up. He went from level 17 to level 18, gaining 1 point in each attribute and 10 potential points. Jang entered the house again, extended one hand to the side, clenched his other fist, started looking at it, and couldn't help but smile when he saw that this was too fast. In just a few seconds, he had obtained over 500,000 experience points and leveled up. He thought that this secret realm was simply a paradise tailored for him. now that there were no necromancers in the house anymore. He turned his head back and decided to investigate the old man's strange photograph. Before, the old man was smiling, but now he was terrified and trembling with fear. Jang approached the photo, put his hands on his waist, started looking at it, and with a smile asked the old man why he wasn't smiling. Little Nine manifested herself. She started looking at the photo and informed Jang that everything outside had been eaten. He began to point at the photo with his thumb, and with a smile he praised Little Nine for having done a good job. He asked her to look at the photo and also if she could devour it. Upon hearing this, she started looking at the photo with a hungry gaze. Seeing this, the old man became even more afraid and couldn't help but start trembling. At that moment, the old man's photo exploded into pieces, leaving them in shock. They couldn't help but wonder what was happening. A system window appeared. They had successfully scared off the level 35 Elite Death Guardian. As a reward, the system granted them 8701 experience points. The pieces of the photo fell to the ground. Jang and Little Nine started looking at the pieces and felt a little depressed. At the same time, somewhere else in the village, someone hit a necromancer in the face with a bow. This person was none other than Duan Feng. Several necromancers surrounded him, but he drew his bow, held it with both hands, clenched his teeth tightly, and with a determined look began to swing it forcefully, hitting one of the necromancers in the process. Another necromancer tried to attack him by surprise, but he reacted in time, and using the sharp string of the bow, he cut its hand. He couldn't help but feel fortunate since he had a long bow as a weapon. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to deal with these undead creatures. He began to worry about the others, especially Zhang Chen, who was not even level 30. If something really bad were to happen, he didn't know how he would explain it to his boss. While he was lost in his thoughts, a system window appeared in the sky to inform him that his teammate had killed a lower-level Spectre and an elite-ranked Guardian of level 35. As a reward, he obtained 1261 points. Duan Feng lifted his head, started looking at the system window, and couldn't help but be shocked. He began to tremble and started questioning what was happening, and who was doing this. A horde of necromancers appeared and started chasing him. He grabbed the bow with one hand and began to flee. He clenched his teeth tightly, and with a serious look, he remembered that this was a secret realm that had mutated. He didn't know who was killing so many monsters in seconds. He came to the conclusion that the responsible person could not be someone weak. At first, he thought it could be Chu Bilong, but then dismissed him since his physical attributes were very passive. Then he thought it could be Shaoqi, but dismissed her as well since she was a mage who could restrain necromancers but wouldn't be able to kill them in seconds. He immediately ruled out Jang since he was low level. He had awakened the poison and growth class of all things, which would have no effect against the undead. With a surprised look, he began to look ahead and started questioning if the person who was killing the monsters was MANHUA. He didn't know if she was that strong. The necromancers slowly started closing in on him. Seeing this, he began to run even faster. Now that there was someone on the team who could defeat the monsters instantly, he thought there was time to save the others. He asked Jang to hold on a little longer. At the same time, in some other place in the village, someone put their hand on the wound they had on their shoulder. This person was very injured. She was none other than MANHUA. Behind her there was a horde of necromancers who were chasing her. She was very injured, with scratches all over her body. While she was holding the wound on her arm with her hand, she opened her mouth and started bleeding. She was very desperate because she didn't want to die. She was the only one who had a hidden profession in her family. She still had to participate in the Young Talents camp and revitalize her family. Her hopes for life slowly began to fade away. Soon, she would run out of energy. She couldn't even use her primary ability, Cult Speed, properly. She started crying because she wanted to go home and didn't want to die. At that moment, she saw several necromancers running away, and upon seeing this, she began to question whether it was her teammate who had just killed the undead. She started walking even faster, and several seconds later she reached the end of the alley. At that moment, Little Nine's poisonous mist began to appear from around the corner. Upon seeing this powerful energy, she couldn't help but be somewhat surprised and feel relieved. Thinking that she was saved, She just had to hold on a little longer. But for her bad luck, her strength completely ran out, causing her to fall to the ground. While she had both arms supported on the floor, she closed her eyes, and as blood was dripping from her mouth, she thought this wasn't good. The necromancers began to approach her and prepared to attack. Seeing this, she panicked, extended her hand forward, and with a desperate look started asking for help. At that moment, Jang appeared, and with a serious look, he began to stare at her. Upon seeing that the person from whom the necromancers were fleeing was Jang, she couldn't help but be shocked. She started reaching out her hand towards him, and with a surprised look, she couldn't help but wonder what was happening and how it was possible for him to be so strong. This is the end of the video. If you guys want to see the next part,